Today I will be reviewing the green-white token deck. Let's begin with a short history. The green-white token deck were one of the more popular decks during Guilds of Ravnica, and you would quite often face it in MTG Arena, MTG Online, and of course in the physical world as well. Perhaps not as common as other tier 1 decks, but it were not rare to meet a green-white token deck. It also had showings in the SCG tournaments. Fast forward to Ravnica Allegiance release, the green-white token deck vanished in just a few weeks. What made the green-white token deck vanish so fast were a couple of factors. For one, it was never the strongest tier 1 deck, and with Ravnica Allegiance came Sultai, which became one of the most played deck in our current standard for a time. Another factor that contributed to the downfall of the green-white token deck were the change in control decks. Previously, control decks ran red, white and blue, with 2 to 3 board removals in their entire main board. But with Ravnica Allegiance, they gained access to the latest version of Wrath, also known as Chaos Wrath, and many of the control decks would now be seen to run 3 to 4 Chaos Wrath in the main board, plus the new Cry, which made token decks close to unplayable with the amount of control decks everywhere. There were also an increase in Goblin Chain Whirlers again, which already were one of the best early creatures versus green-white tokens. No one saw the token deck for a while after the release of Ravnica Allegiance. Then all of a sudden the deck came back, did great in MTG Arena and in an SCG tournament for about 1 week, and then it was gone once more. No doubt the deck will be back once again unexpectedly in the future. So let's talk about some of the pros and cons of the token deck. Let's begin with some pros. First off, a lot of the cards that you will need will also allow you to craft other decks, some of them fun and some of them more competitive, such as History of Benalia. You also have your Marshals that will help you in your white decks, and you also have the Elephant, will also is included in pretty much every white-blue deck as well. Secondly, the deck can play itself out quite differently from game to game, making it less likely to bore you with the same outcome every single time. Those are some of the pros when it comes to the token deck. Let's talk about some of the cons. The obvious first con has to be the cost of the deck in MTG Arena, with as many as 10 mythic cards needed to make the deck usable and maybe another 2 for sideboard. There is also the amount of rare cards required to craft as well. Comparing this to the mono blue, which only takes 4 rare cards, the token deck is quite an investment, which leads to the deck being very beginner unfriendly just in its cost. For example, I have actually every single tier 1 deck as of right now except the token deck, just because there's so many mythic wildcards that I still need in order to craft it. Secondly, the deck suffers greatly whenever there are a lot of control decks or red deck wins in the queue, with tokens not having anything to deal with either unless 4 History of Benalia back-to-back happens, but that could happen if you're playing mono white or white blue as well. Another con is quite a common one for full creature deck, and that is the lack of any damage outside of your creatures and the lack of draw power. The deck of course features neither, making it quite hard to close out game, and of course if you do lose your board, well, here comes my 1-1 and here comes an elephant and go. In conclusion, the deck is not bad, but it suffers greatly by just how many board removals are currently being run by the decks. On a balance scale, the deck is quite balanced and is not frustrating to play against. On the Wolf Run to John scale, I would place it next to Wolf Run in terms of fun and healthy, unlike mono blue and red deck wins. Before I wrap up this video, I'm just going to talk about the Unbreakable formation. I know that it can at first seem like the answer to a lot of board removal. The issue becomes when you're facing control decks, you either have to hold back your creatures in order to have mana for Unbreakable formation for the board removal, meaning the game gets longer and the next Unbreakable formation will no doubt get counterspell. The same can be said for playing versus red deck win, green red ramp and red black. If you're trying to hold back mana for Unbreakable Formation just to save your creatures, then all of these decks will just swarm the board with more threats and basically just beat you to death with their different goblins and different stuff. Don't get me wrong, the Unbreakable Formation is a very good card and it is used in Tokens deck. However, trying to use it defensively is often a mistake in the long run, and most of the token deck usually only run 1 to 2. And again, if you're trying to hold back mana so you can actually defend your creatures with an Unbreakable Formation, more than likely you might save the creatures, but you're gonna lose in the long run when they swarm the board with more creatures, or they're resolving the third board removal and you're sitting there, well, I don't have any formations left and I can't put pressure anymore, so you just die. It is better to just try to be as aggressive as you can and close out the game against such decks. Anyway, I catch you next time. This is Project signing out.